Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Welcome back to the podcast, live from ERE, and thanks to our sponsors, JuiceBox at AI. I'm thrilled to welcome our next guest, Rachel Allen. She's the Senior Director of Talent Acquisition at a little company called 7-Eleven. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let me ask you, what attracted you to this specific conference? Why did you come here?
I actually really like the conferences that have those more intimate opportunities to touch base with folks that are going through the same things that I am. Sometimes in some of the bigger ones, you can get lost in the crowd. I think the networking opportunities that are available at conferences like this make sense. And then just the topics obviously were on point for what makes sense in my world.
And where's home for you?
Home is Dallas, Texas.
Okay, so we're not too far.
Depends.
Depends.
A little bit of a plane ride. Yeah.
I'm coming from New York. It was
you're right.
It was a nice effort out here.
Yeah, way further for you.
So let's get into it right now. Actually, I'm going to take a step back. So the podcast, we like to talk about how people got into this world, into talent. If you don't mind me asking, how did you get into the world of people?
Yeah, that's always a great question because no one that got into this world was on purpose. Right?
Very, very few.
I'm sure you've heard a lot of fun stories on how people land here. I actually have a finance degree, right? So how does that work out? I was lined up to go work for the CIA.
And we're done with the podcast with the B portion of today. That's a spy camera right there.
So I was lined up to work for the CIA. Side note, my favorite show of all time was Alias. I was going to figure out how to become an actual field operative somehow, going from working in finance for the CIA into a field operative. Hadn't figured it out yet. But it didn't matter because after backpacking Europe after graduation, the offer was rescinded.
So your first rejection.
My first rejection. Yeah, it was a life lesson. Didn't enter the workforce in the world's greatest time, right? So I wasn't the only one. It was happening a lot. And so I found the first job that I could and that I thought was finance-ish, which was mortgage servicing. Turns out mortgage servicing is not a finance role, right? But I learned a lot in that role, met a lot of great people, started networking, actually met my husband there. And when we were thinking about moving, things forward, we didn't want all our eggs in one basket, especially in the mortgage servicing industry during the housing market crash.
That was a good time.
So I went to a staffing agency to find me a job in finance. And they said, that's cute. You don't have any real experience in finance and you're too many years removed. But hey, how about you recruit for finance and accounting?
What is this recruiting?
And so that's how I got into recruiting and then went from there. So I started out an agency.
You said something interesting. I think it's important for a lot of young folks out there in the early part of their career. Sometimes it's more important that you learn what you don't like early on and quickly as possible. And I talk a lot about my time working in
Good point.
At American Express. I learned very quickly there that I didn't like the numbers part of it. I know you're a finance person, but I liked the numbers. I didn't like the analysis. I'm more qual and quant like that. And I learned that early on. So all future roles for me were more creative, and that pushed me back from corporate back into advertising. So let's get into 7-Eleven. Actually, how did you land the role at 7-Eleven?
They were one of my clients when I was the staffing agency.
So they flipped you.
Yeah. So 7-Eleven was one of the clients I'd gained while I was at the staffing agency, and then 7-Eleven recruited me internally.
Which is fascinating because you got to first look at the process from the pure candidate side before you got into it.
And introduction to the people and the culture fit. And, it was a long-term interview, honestly, from my side to understand if it was something I would like. Yeah.
And they were basically interviewing you when they were a client of yours and vice
unknowingly,
versa.
But yeah, we kind of were. And then I actually left 7-Eleven and came back. So I'm a boomerang.
I love the boomerang candidate. So let's get into it. 7-Eleven hires about 140,000 people a year across the U.S. and Canada at all different levels. And that's inclusive of everything, retail and store, corporate. That's a lot right there. And the number we have here is 95% of the process is automated. As much as you're open to sharing, and especially in a conference like this, best practices, how do you guys do it? What tools? Let's look up the hood.
So I want to call out, I work for 7-Eleven Inc., which is just US and Canada, right? We are a global brand, but I'm only for 7-Eleven Inc., US and Canada. So what we're talking about is specific to that, the hires, the number of hires, and the automation process that we put in place. I also want to call out that we are 45% franchise versus corporate. So again, only supporting the corporate side of things. We are not supporting on the franchise side. So that being said.
Thank you for clarifying.
What we did on the corporate side of stores, so the automation is for the store level hiring under our store leaders, we were able to automate 95% of the process. And the one part of that process that's not automated is the actual in-person interview. And we need to keep that in-person touch still there. It was a long journey, but when I came back to 7-Eleven, I mentioned I was a boomerang. When I came back about 3 years ago was just after an acquisition of Speedway. And through that acquisition right there, where we were on 2 totally different tech stacks. There was 2 resource modeling. Two resource models to everything. And we were really trying to figure out how to solve for a war on talent that was very real for everyone at that time. Think back, 2020, 2021. But in addition to that, we had our own complexities because of this acquisition integration that was going on. But because we were trying to solve for it, we took a real good look at, what can we do to enable our stores to remain staffed as needed. And we kind of went through a bit of a journey. We tried one thing first and then made a business decision that ultimately led us to figuring out what technology could enable this business decision that we did. So I think it's important to understand that we led with our strategy, what we were solving for, what was this business decision, and then we figured out technology that could enable this strategy that we wanted to put in place. High level, what we did is we went from having hundreds of recruiters in the field, helping our store leaders hire those store associates
Local.
They were all local, to really holding store leaders accountable to their labor optimization and hiring. And so no longer having those recruiters as a resource. And when that decision was made, technology was not in the picture to help enable that. And then when the support of store hiring fell into my shop as a CEO, we knew quickly, we needed to help enable this business decision.
So let's pause for a second here. And we're talking about, if we're talking about folks that work in the stores, these are hourly employees, and there's a lot of considerations to take into effect, a lot of factors to take into consideration. For example, how they apply, how they engage. Yeah. Some have emails, some may not, but everybody has, everyone pretty much has one of these. So let's talk about the strategy as much as you're open to sharing. What were some of those considerations that were very unique to this business model?
To the population.
Correct. Yeah. And the population that your candidate pool.
Right. So first and foremost, our candidates are our customers, right? And we can't lose sight of that. And so our North Star is the experience that they're going to go through.
Amen
because
to
we
that.
cannot lose them as our customers.
Right. It's bad experience. All of a sudden, like, you know what? I am going to just go to X, Y, and Z store.
Correct. And
because I had a good experience.
No, you're exactly right. And we did look at some data to understand some of the behaviors of our candidates. And a couple things that we found is that they were trying to engage with us 24/7, but we don't have recruiters or hiring managers, able to respond 24/7.
Is that because of the nature of the type of employment that maybe they're working another job and they can't step away from where their job are?
Potentially.
Between 9 and 5. So you have to meet them where they are.
Correct. We need to meet them where they are.
That's a tremendous insight.
Which is core to who we are as a business. We're operating our stores 24/7, right?
So it's in the same ethos.
Kind of does make sense, right? But we also found that they were applying to 14 other places the same day they were applying for ours. And if we weren't getting to them first, we were losing them.
Speed to market.
How do we get to them fast? Well, you have to automate. But then through what channel do we see them actually responding to? And that was text. And we knew that they could do it at 3 a.m. or wherever they were. We were meeting our candidates / customers where they were with what they needed.
Key takeaway, folks.
So our mission really is to make our customers' lives a little more awesome every day by providing fast, personalized convenience where you want it, when you want it, how you want it. And because our customers are our candidates, we needed to do the same in the recruitment process, right? We needed to meet them where they were, how they wanted it, when they wanted it, what they wanted, and personalized and fast.
So there was an opportunity with Speedway coming on board there to revamp and take a look at the whole process there. Without getting into too much of the weeds here, you were looking at different platforms. And it's trial and error, and you're getting pitched. But you also didn't know what you didn't know at the time, right? There was things you do, things that you didn't know. But when you started testing out, what was one of those big moments, or maybe, Rachel, it was a hypothesis that you thought something was going to work, and then you quickly realize from the data coming in, you're like, you know what, there's a better way to do this.
Yeah, so for us, we actually went into it thinking we were just going to use more of a light version of what we ended up with. So more of the communication aspect and the texting, just texting to apply is where we started. And we quickly moved into using the technology that we chose as a full ATS for the store level. And that was a big change in direction that we didn't realize until going through it. It's like, oh, that's what we need, because up to this point, ATSs have really focused on solving for non-high volume.
Correct.
It was really hard to find a solution that could enable us in the high volume space. And we just
how do you organize? How do you sort? How do you push applications to the now? Very diverse workforce at 7-Eleven, multicultural. How did you build this system? Again, meeting candidates were there language selections?
Yeah.
Like, how did that work?
So ultimately what we did was we provided an AI layer that was wrapped around. So we love to complicate. We have 2 tech stacks. So wrapped around both tech stacks. So it's powered behind the scenes by 2 different things. But from the front end, all the banners within our family of brands was having a similar experience. And so it was an AI layer that was driven by communication. So it's through conversation, through texting, that candidates are asking questions and applying. And if a candidate just starts speaking in another language, our recruiting assistant replies back in that same language. Or a candidate can say, hey, do you mind changing to this language? And then our recruiting assistant does.
So let's just say it's a general store employee working on one of those. What are those types of questions? How do you assess it using the technology if they're qualified and if they're going to be a good fit for 7-Eleven?
Yeah, so we started solving for speed. And the questions that originally we went forward with to begin with were some of the basic questions.
Previous experience.
Are you old enough?
So the vital stats.
Yeah. And that really helped us get to speed. And by solving for speed, we unintentionally solved for quality in a bit. And we didn't realize it, right? Because I mentioned that they'd apply to 14 other places. And since we were the first ones getting to them before the other ones they applied to, we were getting the best of the best. So it was already solving for quality. But now we are layering in another aspect to it to really lean into that quality piece of it. So operations even said, right, they were like, we really appreciate that you solved for the speed and we think you've nailed it, but can you do even a little bit more in quality? So we're adding an assessment. And that's what we're going to do to help with really identifying the quality aspect.
I mean, the speed of technology, we go to conferences like this and we have a front row seat to the latest innovations out there. Is there a part about the AI as a business owner that scares you? Is there something not specific to the tools that you're using, just in general?
Just in general?
In general.
Well, I think human nature, you're scared of the unknown. We don't know what we don't know. We're worried that, it could be taught incorrectly and, we'll have to course correct. It's the uncertainty of where it's all going to settle out. I think that's what people are afraid of, not necessarily the technology itself, but the impact the technology has and what it means. There's so many good things that it can be used for, but like anything we've noticed, get stuff into the wrong hands and,
So with the tech that you're using internally, has this created other opportunities for new roles within the organization, whether it be an ops, recruiting, HR, VP?
Yeah.
With skill sets that are now required for these positions that you didn't have before because of your tech stack.
Yeah.
So you have new team members coming in that might need to have certain skills and experience.
Yeah, so we're in an evolution right now, and I think it's a never-ending evolution within the talent acquisition space because what our team looks like today versus a year ago is already different. I'm sure it'll look different within a few months even, right? So I did totally redo kind of the organization as a whole to better serve the direction we were moving with the technology. And there were roles that were eliminated with that business decision I mentioned, but we were able to repurpose a lot of that talent into other roles.
I love when companies do that.
Yeah, and
they know
more
the company,
than doubled
they're subject
our
matter
team.
experts, and they have transferable skills.
Yeah.
For example, recruiters could be great salespeople. They could be great customer service.
They are salespeople.
I mean, we are. I like to call because I'm a recruiter. I'm an in the trenches recruiter, but I am a mark-recruiter. And I think and I say it kind of tongue in cheek, but it really comes down to the ability to sell, to tell a story, to tell a narrative of the company that you're working with, the company that you're at, but also be able to listen to the candidate and get their feedback. Let's get in the trenches of recruiting for a moment, if you don't mind. When you're making a hire on your team, I'm going to give a little bit of alpha here. by the time someone gets to you, I assume that they can have a certain skill set and experience by the time they get to you in the process. So we're kind of checking the boxes on that. And I don't mean to say check the boxes, but they have what they need on paper. How do you assess character, values, and if they're going to be a value add to the team?
Yeah.
And some top secret, Rachel.
That's a great question.
Some top secret questions here for anybody who's interviewing.
What's so crazy, right, is that the number one tool that anyone uses within the talent acquisition space is the interview. And I don't think anyone has solved for the perfect interview. And so it is interesting. I think it just takes professional maturity and years of experience under your belt to understand the nuances and reading between the lines of the answers that you're asking. And I think really asking those probing questions to make sure that you're getting to the heart of who that person is and the value that they're going to add to the team. I think where AI will not really solve for is more of the culture fit for the team. So I think it can really be helpful in the front end of getting, down to a place of some really great qualified candidates to then have that final last mile where you add that human touch and trying to understand, because what you don't want AI to do is to give you cookie cutter people either, right? You don't want a team of the same people.
You don't want bias. That's another point with AI in general. It's fascinating. I don't know if you had an opportunity to take a look at Brian Chesky from Airbnb. Did a talk about an hour and a half long on founder mode, and a lot of it was most of it was focused on hiring. And one of the things he mentioned was during the interview process, if you're interviewing someone for mid-senior level roles, keep going on the same question.
Yeah.
Keep going at them, and not in a combative way, but do they really know what they're talking about?
Right.
And to the point where, like, okay, I have faith as the interviewer that this person knows, and I want to know, how did you figure it out, and what was your contribution to the team, where I feel the confidence in it instead of talking around the picture there.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people love to focus on the results and the deliverables and the accomplishments. I like to focus on the path they got there, what was their thought process and why they did what they did, versus just telling me in the end why it all worked out great. I kind of want to know the journey part. That gives me more insight into whether they're going to be a right fit for someone on my team.
So let's finish strong here. What's keeping you up at night as a talent leader?
As a talent leader, I was going to
start. Just in general. That's a separate show, and we're not going to go through legal approvals for that one.
Yeah, no. I think similar to everybody right now, it's just the unknown. Trying to stay ahead of the unknown. It is so fast-paced. It's constantly moving. It almost feels like there's not a time to sit back and take a break. I think that's mostly it, but admittedly, I thrive on that kind of speed. So this is kind of my jam right now. But even though it's my jam, it does keep me up.
And certainly, let's finish on a note of positivity. Share with us it could be anything, a little story about maybe a team member or something from a candidate interview, just or a process improvement, just a bright light. Let's send some flowers to your team or somebody.
Oh my gosh, my team as a whole is incredible. And I'm in a situation where I know I can step away, or I can delegate, or I can count on my team to lean in and step up to take care of things. And just what they accomplish amazes me on a daily basis, and how supportive they are of each other. It really is a cool thing to watch, to have other teammates on their own just come forward to say, I just really want to talk about how so-and-so really helped me with this, and it was so grateful. I'm just so appreciative of you. We always start our meetings that we have with recognition, and there's always a ton of really cool recognition. And so just how collaborative and cooperative and strong the team is together. It's something that really is big at 7-Eleven. We're stronger together.
It's a team sport.
It really is a team sport. And I think my team just by far exemplifies that. Yeah.
And for anybody out there, this is a cheers to the 7-Eleven team out there. These are pretty cool. Have you seen these? Do they have these all over the office?
These are pretty cool. Not in the office, but I have seen them.
Yeah. I live in New York, out of Long Island. I have not seen these out there. Rachel, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Where could folks connect? Where could they learn more? What's the best place to connect with you?
Oh, with me, LinkedIn. Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, yes.
Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This episode of the podcast, live from ERE 2024 in Anaheim, is brought to you by Juicebox.ai. Recruiting just got smarter with Juicebox, the company behind People GPT. With AI sourcing powered by generative AI, you simply tell People GPT who you are looking for in a natural language. Need a senior data scientist with healthcare experience? Done. Looking for a creative marketing manager based out of Austin? Easy. People GPT instantly creates a search and evaluates profiles, saving you hours of time and effort. Already trusted by over 500 companies and agencies, from boutique recruiting firms to Fortune 500 TA teams, People GPT is revolutionizing the way to find talent. Ready to level up your sourcing game? Use code POZ20, that's POZ20, for an exclusive 20% discount. Juicebox, where hiring meets the future. Start sourcing smarter today. Visit juicebox.ai. Thanks.
You're back with Jason Moreau. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Adam. Nice to have you here, and thank you for having me.
And I can't wait to continue to talk about candidate experience and talk about employer branding and employer experience. So for everyone out there who may not know you and your company, tell us who you are and what you guys do best.
Sure. Jason Moreau. I've been in the talent acquisition technology space since the mid-1990s, so kind of early adoption of the internet. A little background, I built a job board called careerexchange.com. And then in early 2000, we ended up morphing into just listening to the clients. Building an applicant tracking system called Sonic Recruit. Sonic Recruit, we were primarily in North America, selling to the corporate world. And during those days, we really focused heavily, and we didn't realize what we were doing, but focused heavily on experiences. So as candidates went through the corporate website that we hosted for the career sites, we really focused on the branding, searchability of jobs and openings and how to apply, and making it try as seamless as possible for technology back then. And so we didn't realize how much focus we had on candidate experience, and we were acquired by another ATS, and then we all kind of went separate ways for a few years. And so I just picked up the phone after I got a little itchy to build something again.
Builders want to build.
Builders want to build, and I have that itch, and I just can't stop. So that's where the birth of Survale came about. Was one of the co-founders and I, we were like, well, let's go measure these experiences. So that's kind of how we came about. So we started measuring experiences with the technology, and one thing leads to another, additional modules, keep growing in different areas. And our tagline at Survale is really hello to hire and hire to retire.
Look at that. I like that. Hello to hire. So what I love about your background and the perspective we're going to talk about here, you've been in this industry for a couple of decades, so you've seen the progression of technology, but you've also seen the cycles of technology.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to, there's a shiny new object versus adoption and integration, there's certainly a cycle there too. Where are we right now? Because if you step out there, all you're going to hear is AI, right? Yeah. AI, EIO, everywhere it's going to be about AI. What would you compare this to, let's just say 15 years ago? Was it maybe I'm going to push it back even further, say 20 years ago, with more of the integration of the internet and job boards moving to these? Would that be a fair comparison?
Yeah.
Going from traditional paper resumes to manila envelopes being dropped off.
Yeah. Remember the paper days? You might not.
I'm not that young.
Okay.
I just don't let the man bun fool you. I'm actually pretty old.
I'm
actually 73 years old. I just have great skin.
You look great for 73.
Yes. It's the New York Botox. I'm telling you, I do a lot of it. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, so the days of the paper, right? You'd apply and you'd get this letter back in the mail a week or two later.
I remember mailing resumes. I did.
Yeah, I did too. And you'd probably end up with a whack of mail, and you'd get excited. All these letters coming at you when you're 17 or 18 years old, and it all said like, "Get out of here!" Right? We don't want you. It was just the rejection at that point.
And then that went online.
Yeah, the job boards and the early adopters of the internet was really talent acquisition, right?
First movers.
I would say they're that and something else that we won't want to mention, but
we all know what that is.
Yeah.
So basically, we fall into two categories: even the stuff that you do not professionally, and then job seekers and talent acquisition. Who knew?
Yeah. So they really help drive the innovation of the internet and the web. When Mark Andreessen built Netscape, that's when the world changed and job boards sprouted. You had Dice.com, Monster.com. Mm-hmm. We were in there, and it was exciting. And then really quickly, people were emailing their resumes and applications to employers to an email address, careers@company.com.
Going to the black hole.
And then black hole was more what it was they couldn't check their email anymore because there was too many resumes in there. Like it literally crashed their email browsers, right?
Birth of the modern ATS platform.
And so that was the birth of the ATS. Is like, how do we get around this? Well, let's funnel them into an online database.
Or as quickly called the online filing cabinet.
Yeah, back then I think it was called the Application Service Provider, ASP, if you remember that name.
That's a new one there.
Yeah.
So we've seen this go in and out in the cycle here. When you hear AI from a business, a business owner, and
yeah.
How do you interpret it for your product and what you guys do?
So we've definitely embraced AI. We're leveraging open AI, and we're leveraging it in a few ways. Our clients tend to have large volumes of data, so we're very fortunate.
It's one of the best use cases.
It's one of the best use cases. Like we're very, very fortunate.
Sorting.
And it's all measuring and understanding qualitative feedback. So you'll be able to come in and you can, right today with our product, you can come in and ask questions into your data. Like, who are my top performing recruiters? Mm-hmm. Come back and tell you, and it'll back it up with the data from within their account. But even importantly, we're starting to branch out, and so we're sending out summaries to recruiters and users of the platform, like on a monthly basis. Like, here's where you're doing well. Here's where people are saying you need to improve. Mm-hmm. So, really trying to surface some themes for them, as well as, we're monitoring for discrimination. So if you see any kind of discriminating comments, qualitative feedback coming in, you don't always capture that from a human. And, through automation, we're able to capture some of that stuff, which is super important.
So it's interesting. Let's dig into your bread and butter, which is experience.
Yeah.
And let's focus and narrow that focus on candidate experience.
Yeah.
What are at the high level, called the 30,000-foot view? What are the key indicators and metrics and viewpoints that you're looking for?
So with Survale, we integrate into the applicant tracking system. So gone are the days of exporting your data to go in Survale. So what we're really measuring is people. So you have recruiters, you have managers, you have people giving you offers. We're measuring process. So what is our process like? And we're measuring technologies. So how is chatting with our recruiter AI bot? Like, was it efficient? How is our offer process? So we're measuring people, process, and technology. And, we're surfacing themes in all those areas. So when you look at your time to hire from someone new to hire, you're not only can you see the time, but where is it taking us longer?
Where are the log jams? Where's the process?
And why is it a log jam there? And where are we doing well? A lot of people focus on the negative, but what we're also finding is focusing on the positive is as important, if not more important.
What's a big green flag company should be looking for?
Green flags, I think when you find people doing great experiences based on feedback, you need to dig in and understand what is it that makes them stand out, and how do we replicate that across our team? How do we scale that? Because that's going to enhance your brand in social media. It's going to enhance your brand on Indeed reviews, Glassdoor reviews. It's going to make your recruiting efforts easier. Your hiring, it makes the longevity of an employee longer. Retention, internal mobility. So those are the big things we will look for.
That's interesting. There's so many factors obviously involved. We said this conversation with Kevin previously. Quality hire is a tough one because there's quant, and it's qual, and it's subjective as well too. Yeah. So how do you determine quality of hire? What's kind of is there an industry standard? What are you seeing out there? And obviously there's some nuances around industry and other factors.
Yeah. So when we look at quality of hire, we're measuring from the perspective of a manager. So we'll send off a survey to the manager. At the first week, hey, tell us a bit about the recruiting process first. Did you see enough quantity, quality, enough diversity? And then 90 days or whatever cadence you're looking for, multiple times, you can survey the manager saying, hey, tell us a bit about your new hire that's been in your department now for 90 days. Are they at the productivity levels that you'd expect? Are they culturally fitting in? How likely would you rehire this person? And it gives you a gauge, a perspective, whether it's subjective or not, it's real. And you already have all the other metrics from your other platforms on how long they've been here and so forth. But those are important pieces. And then measuring the new hires' experiences as well from the other side, are
they properly onboarded?
Properly onboarded.
Well, onboarding is the biggest fail point in any candidate experience.
Yeah.
Once you take them from candidate to new hire,
right?
That transition, crossing that threshold,
it's critical. It's great.
I mean, it's critical. I can't even tell you, being firsthand as an in the trenches recruiter, we do so much. We manage good recruiter will manage the process.
Yeah.
And everyone out there, a good recruiter, the best recruiters are the ones that manage expectations. Yeah. They're giving feedback. Not always feedback, because that's not always available, but at least they're giving you a status of what's going on.
Right.
But once we get to the point of the offer, and we could shepherd an offer across the line, we could get the candidate there, then it's out of our control.
Right.
And it's about the companies that invest in onboarding, not just from a process monetary standpoint, but from a people standpoint.
Yeah.
And that's where the data comes into play. Do you guys show fall off after onboarding?
Yeah, and it highlights the managers where it falls off. We can tell you really quickly. and you'll also have like insights to forecast whether you're going to have turnover. Like, if you start measuring at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you'll start to see feedback in certain departments and themes where, my experiences aren't great, which is an indicator of turnover in the future here.
Jason, how many folks are in your organization?
We're just under 20 right now.
So it's a relatively small team, but hiring, and I would even say hiring is more critical in a small organization.
Yeah.
Do you drink your own Kool-Aid? Do you use your own tools? Right? Are you utilizing your own products within the organization?
So we do, and we don't. Yeah, this is
eating your own dog food. Sorry, that's the expression I was trying to get to, folks. It took me a couple minutes.
Eat your own dog food. So to be honest, our tool becomes effective for companies with greater than 1,000 employees.
This is a larger data set.
Yeah,
you need more meat on the bone to work with.
Either you have super high volume.
How about this? I'm sorry, Jason. How about I didn't mean to interrupt you. Maybe some best practices you learned from other clients that you adopt into your own hiring process.
Yeah, that's great. I think some of what I've seen right now is I hate to just jump on that theme, but it's the adoption of AI. Really with having the ability to go out, source, help me write the descriptions, help me source and find and pre-screen and narrow down a list of people that are on target. We're seeing that right now, and I'm really fascinated by the automation of the recruiter experience. I think that only works for certain roles, right, in the high volume. It doesn't necessarily work for executive recruiting.
No, I think. Well, let me take a step back on it. I think there's ways to shortlist, because I'm using the technology firsthand with executive searches. But obviously, at certain levels, there's some nuances and very technical elements to certain CEO roles from that standpoint. Before we kind of bring it home here, what's keeping you up at night as a CEO from a business perspective?
From a business perspective, it's how fast the technology is changing. I know what our platform's built on, and I can see how fast just the platform that it continually changes, and it's difficult to keep up with, and you have to keep up with it, or you're outdated within really 12, 18 months. So we've done a really good job. It's hair pulling at times trying to keep up with it. But yeah, that's really what I think is the biggest thing that keeps me up.
And Jason, you mentioned in the beginning that you're a builder, and builders are going to build. What's that fountain of youth that keeps you interested, invigorated, and just excited to be in this space?
So this has been my world, talent acquisition and building. And I just, when I look back at my career, how it started with, a simple job board to an ATS, and then, now we're measuring experiences. I don't know what's the next venture, but I know it's not my last. And, I'm always, I actually find it really exciting. Like, there's always issues and problems in the business world. And if you look at it from is there a solution for that problem? That's where your builders come to life, I think, and they think in a different way of like that. And if you look at problems as an opportunity, I think that's how I see through the lens of when I look at things.
Love it. And I love what you guys are building out there, because at the end of the day, what they're building is to make it a better candidate experience. For all you job seekers out there, how's that going to improve? How's it going to be a better experience, a better job, a better career that you enjoy and you love? And stay with an organization. Jason, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Where could folks find you? Where could they connect? Where could they learn more?
So you can find me at Jason@Survale, Survale.com. Survale.com is our website. Pretty simple. Send me an email.
Fantastic. Jason,
thank you, Adam.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.